You know what time it is? It's MAIM time. Oh, baby. I'm really excited about this episode. Chris, Kim, and Jun Yoon are two awesome Korean-American dudes who run their own businesses, living life on their own terms. They even launched their own podcast last year. Chris Kim started Badass Asian Dudes, a podcast with a community of amazing Asian guys from all over the world with inspirational stories of success and self-actualization. Jun Yoon's podcast, Expat Startups, in a similar vein, interviews talented, successful entrepreneurs who are making big moves out here in Asia. We chat about the Asian American experience, living abroad in another country from the one you grew up in, and doing what you're passionate about. Together, they are badass Asian startup expat dudes who have inspired me to start my own show, MAIM Time. I hope you enjoy this episode, guys. Please hit subscribe and leave a review. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode ever of MAIM Time. Here today, I have two of my really good bros, my two good youngs, Yoon and Chris. Yoon Jun and Chris Kim. Well, his name is Jun, actually.
Jun, yes.
Yeah. Jun and Chris. And I'm a little anxious because I'm actually super excited to be here. And I want to spend this time to talk with two really good bros of mine who have inspired me to start my own podcast, because these two guys have started their own podcast and I love listening to their content. Jun has his podcast, Expat Startups, and Chris Kim has his podcast, Badass Asian Dudes. And I've been really learning and growing a lot listening to both their podcasts. So first, Chris, Jun, would you tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you grew up, and so on?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in Colorado and LA, and then I came to Korea 4 years ago. Since then, I never intended to be in Korea, but it's been a good journey so far. So that's where I'm from.
I never expected to move to Korea myself. I was born in Korea and I grew up in America. My family moved there when I was 1, and I never thought I would come to Korea. I never thought I would live here, move here 7 years ago, learn the language and live life here. When did you first start living in Korea?
It was 2015.
2015. That wasn't that long ago. It was 5 years ago. I moved here 7 years ago. What about you, Chris? Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Born in LA, born and raised in LA, and started an e-commerce company when I was 25. And I had this dream when I was 21 to be a digital nomad. So the digital nomads, what they do is they have a business, they can work anywhere, make money anywhere, all over the world. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to travel and wake up every day with more money in my bank account. So that was my singular dream that I had, my focus.
When you were 25? 21. Sorry.
When I was 21, but I started my business when I was 25. And then after starting my business, I worked on that for a couple years. And then I decided, it's time to actually make the travel part happen. So maybe 4 years ago, I started traveling all over the world, living in different cities, and then I became tired of that. And so I decided to just stay in one city, and that city was Seoul, and that was 2 years ago. So I've been in Korea for 2 years.
That's awesome. That's actually a dream that I have now that I'm working on. I'm amazed that you had that dream when you were 21.
I'm a super big reader. I love reading books. And even when I was younger, I would be reading a lot of business books. And there was this one book that I really, really loved, and it changed my perspective. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Have you heard of that book?
Yes, I have.
Have you read it?
I have not read it, no, because I read this, or I saw some speaker or author, someone had this idea of I don't know if it was Gary Vaynerchuk, but he actually said 4-hour work week. That's stupid. Tim Ferriss actually works harder than most people I know. Blah blah. It was some kind of YouTube video or something where someone said that, and that turned me off from the book completely. not because I think the book doesn't have merit or whatever, but just because like whatever I do, I know that I'm going to be putting in a lot of hours, and it's not going to be like just hard work. It's going to be smart work. And so although I kind of have I get the idea is that you have time, you live life on your own terms.
So
Is that what inspired you?
So that book, it gets a lot of hate if you read like forums and stuff like that. Like when people bring up that book, it gets a lot of hate. But it's because people just see the title and they don't really understand what the book is about. So the book is about creating systems. It's about creating processes where you take yourself out of the business. That's why it's called the 4-hour work week. Obviously, when you start your business, you're going to be working way, way, way more than 4 hours per week. But once you have your systems in place, you can work as much or as little as you want. That's kind of the place I'm at right now.
I have to thank you, Chris. Just as you said that, I'm just like, oh, well, then maybe I should read the book, and I shouldn't let some preconceived notion like stop me from checking it out. Because what you said makes total sense, and that's what a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are financially independent would say with like generating their business, the system, streams of income, so that you don't have to spend all day, every day on it.
For sure. There were a lot of concepts that I learned from reading that book. It was a huge eye-opener for me. For example, stuff like having virtual assistants in the Philippines. You know, like at the time, like you could hire someone for like $2-3 per hour to just do the work that you don't want to do. That was like a new concept to me. Making money online was a new concept to me. It was just it was a book that really changed my thinking on life and what I wanted.
So would you say you had this dream when you're 21? Yeah. And how old are you now, if I may ask?
32.
32. Do you feel like you have accomplished your dream?
I have.
You have, right?
Yes.
And you've lived that life of the nomad capitalist.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you guys have checked out the Nomad Capitalist, but I love his channel. Didn't you mention Nomad Capitalist in like a podcast or something?
I have not, but I know who the Nomad Capitalist is.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening or watching and want to live that nomad capitalist lifestyle, as do I, what sort of, is it all it's cracked out to be?
It's not. It's not.
Well, at least for a certain period of time, maybe like the first few months or a year, you must have had like a great time, though.
For sure.
Traveling the world.
Yeah. So if you read, or if you're part of any kind of like digital nomad community or forum, or watch digital nomad influencers on YouTube, they all, in the end, they all stop being a digital nomad. They all stop nomading. They all stop traveling. Because I think what you find is that it is fun. It's fun traveling for a couple months or maybe a year or two or something like that. But you're always moving around. You don't have a true home. And what I found is the most important thing is you got to have like a really solid community around you. You know, so, and you can't have that community if you're always moving around. So community is like friends, family, that kind of thing. Humans are not meant to be just traveling around, like going around from place to place, like month to month, you know, like we're supposed to be staying in one place with family. That's how we have been for hundreds of years, thousands of years. So I feel like it's not natural for us just to be uprooted out of our community and just traveling all over the world for long periods of time.
That's interesting. Jun, aside from Expat Startups, what have you been doing for work? What has been occupying your time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I took a more traditional route. So I worked in finance in LA, and then I came to Korea, and then I worked in different startups, and I spent some time in Southeast Asia and Europe, specifically in Berlin. And so during this time, I worked in building startups, tech startups, and working in different ad networks. So I've switched around industries before I began my current business now, which I started last year. Again, similar to Chris, I took on, I sort of took this new journey, building an e-commerce store. And I think just harnessing the power of the internet, 2020, anyone can make money online as long as you take the right steps. And so, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the journey that I've taken in the last 5 years.
And what made you want to start Expat Startups? How would you describe what it is and what's your goal or vision? for
Yeah,
it?
so expat startups, for me, I started because this is something I can relate to as an expat. Not only living in Asia, but, different countries. You meet a lot of expats and you hear a lot of their stories, but more specifically towards the expat entrepreneurs. I wanted to showcase their stories. And also, it's just a means for me to connect and network with sort of these more high caliber people, as opposed to just moving to a new country and just, going to like a nearby event. It's sometimes hard to meet some of these, more, again, just high caliber people. And for me, this podcast has allowed me to do that and meet and network with, like-minded people and just a dynamic background, people doing their businesses.
What's been the biggest benefit for you getting out of this after you started the podcast? Is it just networking connecting with even more high caliber people?
Yes. And it also opened up a new opportunity for me to start my own marketing agency. And so that was also a result of doing the podcast.
I'm just thinking in my head, maybe I should do that later too. Yeah, marketing. But like I'm already, an events director working at Stellar Antics, and it's really exciting to work at the office starting from this week. And I think that's great. Chris, why did you start Badass Asian Dudes? And you can go as long as you like about this.
Why did I start? Just for a long time, I've been looking for projects that I would be passionate about. Because my e-commerce company, I'm not passionate about that. It does make me a lot of money, but it's not something that really excites me. So just for several years, I've just always been thinking about what to do. What is my next thing? I like creating things. I like building new things. I like learning. And this was a new challenge for me. So also I love podcasts. I'm super, super into podcasts. So I thought, okay, I think this would be a really cool thing for me to try. And also this is something that I'd be really passionate about. I'd be able to help other Asian dudes out there.
Are you passionate about Badass Asian Dudes?
Yeah, I am. I'm passionate about the mission. What's hard is the operations part. And as I told you before, I'm hiring someone to do operations and do the stuff that I don't want to do. 4-hour work week style.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
All
I'm
right.
all about creating systems and processes, taking myself out of stuff that I don't want to do.
So the stuff that I honestly dread doing is just sitting down in front of my computer and spending time in GarageBand and editing the files. And that will also go for video editing because that's so time consuming.
It is time consuming.
Are you outsourcing that? Are you hiring someone else?
I'm hiring someone, yeah.
Okay. And so I would assume that if you don't have those resources, like if you can't afford to hire someone else to do this stuff,
You gotta do it
you just
yourself.
got to do it yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
You
well.
got to do it yourself or, just put it out there raw,
Mhm.
There's no problem with that either.
Cool. Well, when did you guys start your podcast? You both launched last year, 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, 2019. I just redid my site, so I was able to see when I did my first one. It was July.
Wow, 6 months. And how many members are in your Facebook group right now for Badass Asian Dudes?
I think like 800, 900, something like that.
Yeah, I just want to say, Chris, like since you've launched the podcast, I've gotten so much value out of your interviews, your episodes. And who was recent? Yesterday, I just listened to your interview with Victor Su, and I thought, wow, this guy is amazing. He's like, he was just like first like selling luxury shoes, and then getting into real estate in Portugal, and then just selling just like the idea of selling a transformative experience to clients.
Yeah, I
out
love
of
his
love.
vision.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, like this is so deep.
That is deep.
Just covering
for
like
sure.
because it's like finance, real estate, it's an industry, but it's also hitting like to the personal, emotional, human side. And it's like I want other people who have their hard-earned cash to be able to invest in a condo, and then we just manage it for them so they can have a home somewhere in the world, a nice condo that is generating revenue for them. I just think that's amazing. And it's also very relevant because I told you I just came back from Boracay for 8 days. The condo that my friend and I stayed at, it was like a dream come true. It was just like super nice. It was like $160 something a night, and we made that place our home, and we fell in love with Boracay. And part of our experience at Boracay was just staying at that condo. It's just 2-bedroom suite, amazing veranda view, and just being like, this is what we deserve. Like this is what we want to live. He actually wants to buy that condo in 2020. And he makes more money than me, so he could, I guess, afford to put down a down payment for that. But that would be like 200 to 300, G's. Mm-hmm. So to hear Victor talk about that to you on your podcast, like that spoke to me, because us being there, it was like such a dream to live in that to stay in that condo, that like that's what we want to do now. And I also think like the people who make that kind of system, where like it's like a luxury condo complex, but then selling individual units for sale to other people, having management service the residents and take care of it when you're not there. Like, I think that's such a cool concept, like a business model. What would you say to people who want to invest in a condo property? The thing I have to mention though is that Boracay just had a typhoon and there was like no Wi-Fi. And the place, it says 5-star, but I don't know, I would call it 4-star, because with paint cracks in the wall and stuff like that, and like with weather, typhoons, like there's all these renovations, liabilities. There's all the nitty gritty details of investing in a foreign country. Yeah. You need to be really on top of risk management. I assume this is like such a new world that I'm getting interested in. What would you say to people who want to make such a property investment? I know you're not like a real estate, developer or anything, but what would you say to people who have that dream of living a sort of like nomad capitalist lifestyle, or, wanting to buy a property like that's like serviced by Airbnb or something, all that stuff? You understand what I'm saying?
I would say that you should stay there for an extended period of time. Like for you and your buddy, you guys, how long were you guys there?
We were there just for 8 days.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's pretty short. You know what I mean? So I feel like a vacation and living there is way different. And like I said before, what I've come to realize is community is freaking huge. If you do not find your group of people, if you do not find your tribe in that city, you're not going to like that city. So you're just there for 8 days, and that's a little vacation, and you guys had a great time. That's really awesome. But you need to be there longer. Try to like find roots there, like see if you vibe with the people there. I think that's very huge.
We vibed hard. Like we had like the most amazing time. We did fun stuff every day. We ate delicious food. We went to like really cool, clubs and bars, and we networked with some really awesome locals, some other expats who like own property on Boracay, like in multiple countries. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, then maybe Boracay is for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's also me and my friend Mark. We've traveled through several countries in Asia together, like Thailand and of course the Philippines recently, Taiwan, and I think he's really eager to actually make an investment this year. But what I want to tell him is, before you decide to like buy a home, let's travel more throughout Asia, throughout the Philippines. Moreover, like, is that what you would encourage before people settle down and find a home? Travel as much as they can, and then live in those places that they are traveling to for a while before.
No, I would not actually. There's this thing I've always, not always, but maybe in like the past year or two that I've thought a lot about. It's called the paradox of choice. Mm-hmm. And it's about how when people have so many choices, it's hard. They're not as happy because they always feel like there's something better. So I feel like for your friend, like he's found some place that he really likes. I would say, then just do it. That's the place you should be. Don't always think that there's going to be a bigger, better place like somewhere else. Because if you think that way, the world is freaking huge. You know what I mean? So if you find a place you like the community, you like the people, you like the food, you like the nightlife, that's your spot. Just choose it and then just move to the next step.
But before you move there, that next step would be to live there for longer than, say, a period of
Yes,
days.
I would say so.
Mm-hmm. Like a couple of weeks to a month.
Several months.
Several months to
I
really
would say.
find out if a place really vibes with you long term. Okay.
Maybe even a year. A year goes by really fast.
June, aside from Korea, like where is home for you right now? It's here, but what other parts of the world have you traveled to and thought like, oh, I could live here for a while, and then you live there for a while, and you're like, actually, this isn't that great.
Well, I mean, to your other point, like I lived in Indonesia for a year.
Oh wow!
Before I came to Korea, and then I spent time in Thailand, Singapore, and so I was also evaluating, whether I should like invest because the rent, prices are cheaper in Southeast Asia, but it's more complicated. And like we mentioned, you have to have your community. Even though I was in Southeast Asia for over a year, I was still questioning whether I wanted to invest or spend more time there. But yeah, I mean, to your question, I'm in my home. It's Korea. I mean, I was in Berlin before. To be honest, I'm open to being anywhere in the world as long as I can continue running my business or, again, meeting new people, like-minded, having that community. I think that's very important.
What would you guys say to people who are looking to, start their own business or, move to Asia, move to another country, start a new life, start a business? And what would you say to those people, especially if they're, like young Asian dudes who are maybe come from like a rough background where, they don't grow up with like a lot of self-esteem. They don't have they don't see a lot of value in themselves. Like, because when I was growing up, like I thought I had no value to offer the world. I grew up, like in my mind, like very overweight. So I had like a bad self-body image. I had low self-esteem. I had a rough childhood, and I went through lots of moments of depression. I've been to some really dark places. What would you guys say to young Asian dudes, especially people who might be the only Asian dude in their community growing up in America, like like a Korean adoptee or some Taiwanese American kid that is just like he has no other Asians and he just feels alone, depressed, and he feels like he's always the outsider.
Okay, so that's a really big question, and
Sorry.
I want to ask it to you actually because you were the one that experienced that, when you were younger, and I feel like you really have blossomed into like a very outgoing, very nice, well-loved dude in the community. So what's your advice?
I guess that's why I started this podcast. My advice is just to believe yourself, and apply yourself. Try lots of different things. When I moved to Korea 7 years ago, I tried to meet as many people as I could. I went to all the open mics. I did stand-up comedy, spoken word, like guitar covers. I wrote some songs over some instrumentals, and then I sang them. And then through those experiences, meeting people, cultivating my personality, just saying like, go up and talk to that guy or girl and say hi and ask them how they're doing. Meeting people, becoming, more of a friendly or charming person as time went by, because like most of my life and still now, I feel like I've been very socially awkward. And so I don't always know what I'm doing, but I just thought I have to keep meeting people. I have to put myself out there. And through my actions and my interactions with people, prove that like I'm a likable, trustable person who keeps his word, mostly, shows up on time. And through those interactions, like I met people, very good friends of mine that eventually led me to the work opportunities that I'm still working at today. One of which is children's education. Just like me performing at open mics, there's a friend of mine who asked me. I didn't approach him. I didn't even know what he did, but he just approached me. He was like the lead singer of a band. He said, "Mime, would you like to work at this job that involves singing to children in English? And here's the pay and this and that." And I wouldn't have met him or found that opportunity if I wasn't just trying something, completely different, which is like playing at open mics, singing songs. I didn't think that would lead me to a work opportunity, but just me exposing myself to different networks and being a likable person was enough for other people to see value in me and then offer me a job. I'm not saying I'm lucky. I'm not saying like I deserve that, but at least my point, I was making the habits to go out regularly and meet people. And then the other work opportunity that came my way is just going out a lot because I love clubs and I love hip hop. So I would go to this club here in Seoul quite regularly because a good bro of mine, who is the CEO at Stellar Antics, invited me to join his team to do parties together because he would invite me out to the club at Club Boom Bar every weekend.
But he must have seen something in you at that time.
Exactly.
So how about even before that, when you didn't have any confidence?
When I didn't have any confidence, I wrote, I could pull it up on my Evernote right now. I read books about how to improve my self-esteem. Like,
what do you think is the number one book?
What's his name? Nathaniel Brandon, like How to Improve Your Self-Esteem or 7 Ways to Improve Yourself. I can't do just, I'll look it up and then.
I know also you're super into Power of Now.
Yes, actually, yes. So meditation, meditation's great. I think just doing little things that slowly improve you over time, right? A la Atomic Habits by James Clear, which was a very good book. I wish I had read a book like that, which talks about 1% increases every day. I wish I had that 7 years ago, because then I would be even more on a higher level than I am now in different aspects of my life. So to answer your question, which is answering my question, like I would say to young Asian dudes who feel like they have low self-esteem, believe in yourself. You have so much potential, and don't think that you don't have stuff to offer the world. Because you just have to go deep down inside, and inside you'll find that there's so much joy and love to offer the world. It's just because of circumstances and like life getting you down, it's just been hiding there. And this might be like really cliche or cheesy, but like I really mean it from the depth of my heart, because most of my life was like a dark hole. Like it was everything was darkness, and I was just miserable, and I hated myself. I hated God. I hated the world. I wanted the world to burn, because that's how angry and sad and upset I was about myself. So in that darkness, I started as in my late teens, and then around the time I started to come to Korea, which coincided with me making a life decision to be all that I can be, and including like learn Korean, get in touch with my roots, accept and learn my Korean identity, accept, not loathe my Korean identity, which, is another thing to get into. But to get into that, sorry, back to the metaphor. I'm in darkness, and then I see a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm crawling through the mud of like my negative self-emotions and my life, which is just my depression. Then I get to the light, and then it's a beautiful beach paradise surrounded by beautiful, amazing people who love me, who admire me and respect me for who I am as a person, that I give value to. And we're just like having a party on this beach, and my life is so amazing. It feels like a dream come true. And then I look back at the tunnel that I came out of, and it's just like a tiny black hole. It's just like a tiny black hole. And all of my pain, all of my childhood trauma and all that stuff, I look at it, I was like, it wasn't such a big deal. Like, why did it take me? I was here all along. Like, so then that depression feels like a dream. So when I was crawling towards the light at the end of the tunnel, it felt like I was heading towards a dream. I was envisioning a dream that is my current reality. And then now that I'm living that current reality, I look back at that black hole, and I just think, well, what was I so mad about? What was I so upset about? Like, my life is awesome. And the reason why, part of why I want to start this podcast and why I wanted this show, is because I want to reach out to other people, 17-year-old moms. If I had followed a program, or had like been able to, read books or be inspired at an early age when I was 17, because I'm 27 now. 10 years ago, if someone had just told me, I believe in you, you can believe in yourself, you can take action, you can improve your life, you can become a badass Asian dude, you can be a successful expat who starts their own startup in another country, and I just had taken that first leap of faith, then I would be on a whole nother level than I am now. So if you're 17, if you're like me, 17, depressed, you feel like your parents or your friends or family aren't listening to you, if you feel like no one cares, Well, I care because I know what that's like.
What
do you guys think?
No, that's super deep, and I can relate with you. You mentioned the message to Asian Americans, specifically in the U.S.
Yes.
I feel your sort of concerns and pains, because I also went through a similar. I don't think as extreme, but I grew up in Colorado. There were a lot of events during my childhood where I sort of rejected my identity. But just one key message, I think, looking back, like you have to control your environment. So you have to have mentors. You have to have
Mentors,
obviously your family and friends. But I think what got me through and what really helped me was having specific mentors that really guided my not only career, but personal development. And that still carries with me today. Like 10 years passed and I still have great mentors here in Korea as well. And that pretty much, it shapes who you are as well. And so it's who you surround yourself with, especially to the young, Asian Americans. You really have to evaluate what you're spending your time on, whether it's the weekends, weekdays. Always surround yourself with, positive people that are helping you. I mean, I think that's something that it's so easily it's an easy concept, but sometimes you don't have access to that. You have to create those opportunities. You have to reach out. You have to be proactive. And yeah, I think that's something that every Asian American, whoever, should take on. Yeah.
And also regarding mentors, if you don't have mentors, podcasts, books,
Exactly.
YouTube, all the top minds, they have so much content. There's so much great content out there right now that even if you don't have a real life mentor, I feel like some of these podcasters or these authors or these YouTubers, they're really, really good.
Well, what if you want to start your own content? What if there's that voice that says, "Oh, I'm never going to be like the Joe Rogan experience," or "I'm never going to be like badass Asian dudes." Like they already got their market. Like, what unique value do I have to offer the world? Not that it always has to be broadcasting, but there's comparing yourself to others. I know you've mentioned that in your own show. It's like, why should I, just because Eddie Van Halen is an awesome guitar player, I'm going to give up guitar. I'm not going to play myself. Do you find that challenging sometimes?
I mean, I think this is cliche, but everyone has their own voice. Everyone is their own person. So everyone has their own story. So you just told your story. That's very, very unique to you, and I'm sure there are tons of people that can relate to that. So I think that just because someone is out there doing kind of a similar thing, that doesn't mean that it's exactly the same, because everyone is unique.
Yeah. It's kind of surreal for me because Jun and Chris have really, like I said at the beginning, have really inspired me to do a podcast, and they send me links and referrals and encouraged me to do it. And now I'm recording this with them, two dudes two badass Asian dude expats in Seoul who I really love and admire. To be here and talking with you guys, interviewing this for my first round of episodes is just I feel like I'm in a dream right now, and I can't tell you guys how grateful I am for this opportunity and your own encouragement, because you guys have been very meaningful mentors in the short time that we've known each other. Just from listening to your podcast and you encouraging me to start my own podcast, it's a little surreal, and I can't express how much love and gratitude I have for you guys. What do you guys want to do for 2020? What's your 2020 vision?
Well, I have a theme for 2020, and that theme is consistency. That's really, really big for me this year. And so I'm trying to do everything I can to be consistent. So that means with work and then also with my podcast. And as I said before, that's why I'm really trying to get my system down for my podcast so I can take myself out, stop being the bottleneck, and then also just be more consistent with work, because work is fun for me. I really, really, even though I'm not passionate about my industry or my niche, I like seeing my business grow, and I love learning. I love going to conferences, meetups, reading books about all this kind of stuff, and then implementing it into my business. I love that. So I just want to be more consistent about my business, and then also consistent about my podcast.
Yeah, I mean, for me, very similar. For me, it's growth. Last year has been a huge learning curve for me, sort of pursuing this new business in the e-commerce space, and just being like resilient, aggressive, just doing it. We always talk about all these ideas. I pursued like 3 different businesses last year, and it didn't work out. And now I'm pursuing a new business, which is very exciting. And so another advice, you can think about it and plan it all you want, but until you actually take action and execute, whatever it is, that's, I think, where you learn the most. And that's where I've learned like more than I've ever have. I mean, I've had like 7 different jobs in my career. I've worked in like 8 different companies in the last 10 years. But, running your own business and taking things, taking action like for your own business is something that it's priceless. You just learn it by doing. And so 2020, again, just growth, continue learning. It's just being proactive. You have to take responsibility, and it also helps to have like accountability. So I have guys like Chris. I have a good network here in Korea that supports my own business, and so I think it's good to always reach out. And even though it's like your own business, you have resources like we talked about, all the content, network. Meet the right people. You have to make the right decisions, but you just learn by doing, and so just take action.
Cool. Do you guys have any plans to travel or I don't know, do something on your bucket list for 2020?
For me, yes, I want to continue traveling Southeast Asia. I'll be going back to Germany for work. We're also going to Bali, just a personal vacation, and then just going back and forth to LA.
What was the question? And
do you have any specific like plans for this year? Like are you going to travel to any place cool, or is there a part of your business that you're going to launch? Or for me, of course, like it's this for me, 2020 is MAIM Time podcast show. So for me, this is big. What about you?
2020, what's big? Like I said before, consistency, and then just making sure I get the right hire, and also making sure the systems are right so that I don't need to do the things that I don't want to do. That's really big.
Are you guys going to have any meetups for your podcasts?
Possibly if I go back to LA. Last year when I was in LA, I had a meetup for my podcast, which went really well.
I wish I was there.
That was awesome. That was seriously awesome. I think there was like 30 people there, which is insane. And
30 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had a nice little barbecue in LA.
You started your podcast in July, and in 6 months you had a gathering in America for 30 people. I think that's great. I think that's phenomenal growth, actually.
It blows my mind.
I think both of you guys are doing so good. I'm really proud of you both. For me, I'm actually going to go to Reno, Nevada at the end of February to go to Jordan Harbinger's 40th birthday. If you're seeing or watching or listening to this, Jordan Harbinger, hi.
Is he having a conference there?
He's spending his 40th birthday in a prison. So, because it's part of this like Hustle 2.0 prisoner inmate rehabilitation program, and we volunteer for a day on his birthday. So I'm looking forward to meet him, network with him, and network with other listeners of the show.
Have you always been a fan of Art of Charm?
No, I found out about Art of Charm after his show, after his podcast, and then I saw that he was part of that community, which I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, And then he went to self improvement, and I love the guy, I love his content. I actually found out about him in Korea through another good buddy of mine, and through his show, I found out about like James Clear, Atomic Habits, Matthew Walker's like Why We Sleep. Like I found so much good content that I'm really looking forward. Like it's a dream of mine to meet someone who's influenced me to that degree. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I wish you guys could join. But
that's awesome. It's cool. I think conferences are a great place to meet people, like-minded people.
Would you guys give me some advice? Like if I meet someone I really admire like that, and I want to network with them, maybe at some point have you, Jordan Harbinger, on my show. Do you have any tips or advice you could give me for people who want to network and make genuine connections?
I think you already know, though. provide value, right? And I think you're really good at that. Even in my Facebook group, like in the beginning, like you wrote like notes and stuff. Like that's so valuable.
I still want to do that. I've just taken a break, but
that's crazy value, And then without someone like asking you to do it, it's like you providing something that the other person thinks is like very important. And then the other person takes notice. They're like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool. Provide value.
Thanks. What about you, Jun? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, something
networking with high value individuals, connecting with those kinds of people.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it. You sort of exemplify that. You're very proactive, just taking action. Like we talked about, there are a lot of mentors that we can directly benefit from through means of content, podcasts, articles. And also, I mean, you can obviously try to network in person, attending conferences. And I think just carrying that attitude and the mindset is going to take you very far. Because, you sort of have to take it step at a time. Otherwise, you might sort of burn yourself. And so the way you're sort of doing it, planning it, because it's really never about a goal. It's about who you become as a result of that goal. Because everyone has goals, but it's like, how do we get there? And so the little steps, like we talk about atomic habits, it's these little daily, things that are oftentimes hard and tough. These are the things that we have to do. And you just focus every day, one at a time, you'll get there. Like you launch your podcast. We talked about this 6 months ago. I think this is it. And so
this is it. You guys are the dream. Thank you for being part of my dream and helping me realize this dream, because I'm so excited about life. I'm so pumped for this year. So thank you so much, guys, for being with me today. I think I just want to talk with you guys for forever, but my MacBook battery, the camera, they don't have that kind of longevity. So what's a way to reach you guys or stay connected?
My website is badassasiandudes.com.
LinkedIn, Jun, Jun Yoon, and then expatstartups.com.
All right. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, listeners.
Thank you.
And audience. And thank you, Jun Yoon and Chris Kim.
Thanks, MAIM.